Hi, greetings to Arrow fans. Also, I apologize for how crazy my hair looks right now, but anyway. So, we're looking at Arrow Season 3, now continues on with Broken Arrow. The episode opens with a mysterious figure killing security guards at a bank with laser beams from his eyes. Roy is confessed and is brought to jail. Lance wants to charge Oliver, but Laurel shows up to tell him the DA won't be charging him. There's suspicion that Lance was the only person present during Oliver's confession. Palmer asks Felicity about Roy's confession awkwardly addresses the fact that he told her he loved her. He essentially takes it back. Ray, how dare you? Oliver visits Roy in custody. Roy says he's doing this as a way to make it right for killing the cop, as well as paying Oliver back for saving his life. Roy thinks the city needs the Arrow. In the Hong Kong flashback, Oliver tells Maseo and Tatsu he's going to go after Waller. Oliver meets with Malcolm, who tells him his days as the Arrow are finished. He suggests that it might be better for the city if he stops Raish from pressuring him by accepting his offer to lead the League of Assassins. Surveillance footage of the metahuman from the opening scene has surfaced on the news. Lance and his team show up at Arrow HQ with a warrant to search the premises, but Roy's fingerprints are the only ones they find. Outside, Felicity and Diggle tell Oliver that they wiped all evidence clean because Roy had already confessed that they wanted to keep the Arrow active. Felicity and Oliver go to Palmer for help dealing with the metahuman. In our flashback, Oliver finds Waller. She's been shot and claims to have been held hostage by General Shreve, who plans to use the Alpha Omega virus on Hong Kong. She also tells him that General Shreve had created a vaccine to inoculate himself and his team against the virus, and advises him to leave Hong Kong as quickly as possible. Thea visits Roy in prison. When Roy tells her that he didn't want to see her, she asks him what's happening. He convincingly tells her he'll be okay and leaves without saying more. With help of Palmer's gadgets, they find out the metahuman's name was Jake Simmons. They're able to attack him to a warehouse. Palmer talks Oliver into letting him go after Simmons alone. It doesn't fare well, but escapes alive. Oliver tells him his mistake was relying too much on the suit. Maseo tells Oliver that they won't be able to get off the island alive. The plan is to try and find the vaccine Shreve has developed to help protect his men. Roy is attacked by 3 large inmates of prison, one of which slashes him in the back. He takes them all out, just before being subdued by the guards. Lance is warned about higher-ups downtown not to make the investigation personal. Since there's no evidence against Oliver, they want him to back off. Lance tells Thea about Roy being attacked. Based on Thea's complaint, Oliver wants to try and break Roy out of prison. Diggle tells him he has to back down and risk losing everything. It doesn't work, but Felicity reminds him that breaking Roy out won't change what Raish has done to the Arrow. Oliver admits he's facing a crisis of identity. In the flashback, Maseo and Tatsu sneak into the base. Oliver renders the guard unconscious. They grab several vials and escape through a vent. Lance visits Roy in his cell. Roy tells him about killing the officer. While checking possible power sources, Felicity is captured by Simmons. She manages to break away briefly, allowing Palmer time to get there and rescue her. Once again, Palmer starts to take a beating, but Oliver gives him a pep talk that helps propel him to talking Simmons down. Roy is stabbed and stunned by one of the guards. He dies, and Lance makes sure to remind Oliver who is to blame. Back at the destroyed HQ, Felicity and Diggle drop a bombshell. Roy walks into the room, still very much alive. These Morales contacts to stab Roy. The man is skilled in not killing the victim and places a beta blocker on the blade, which slows down the heart to simulate death. Everybody thinks Roy is dead, which means Oliver is effectively innocent of being the Arrow. Oliver wonders what happens to Roy Harper. The answer is that he's leaving the city. In the flashback, Oliver tells Maseo and Tatsu he wants to stop General Shreve from distributing the virus on his own, allowing them to protect Akio. They refuse and say they will help him. When Simmons is placed in custody at Star Labs, Cisco Palmer realizes he wasn't present for the dark matter explosion. Palmer wonders how it's possible for him to be a metahuman. Raish appears at Thea's apartment. She tries to fight him, which doesn't go well. He stabs her through the chest with a sword as the episode ends. That's not good. So anyway, let's take a look at some trivia surrounding this episode. This is the first episode of Arrow where the villain is metahuman, a feature usually seen on The Flash. The sword that Rachel Gould stabs Thea with is similar to the sword that he used when he stabbed Oliver. In the Arrow Cave, behind Oliver can be seen a plexiglass box with green Chemulon 6 label on the bottom left-hand corner. Chemulon 6 was the chemical printer used in the TV series Almost Human in the episode Perception to 3D print illegal drugs. A crossroads where Jake Simmons commits a crime is named Garnet and Yount, referencing Milwaukee Brewers players Jim Gardner and Robin Yount. Simmons' previous address, 4160 Dixon Canyon, is a reference to former Green Arrow writer Chuck Dixon, who nobody created Connor Hawke, Oliver Queen's son. This is the last appearance of the original Arrow suit in the present, as was later confiscated by the police and destroyed. The suit will not return until 3 years later in Season 6's Fundamentals. This is the second episode of Arrow where Cisco Ramon appears without Barry Allen, and the first time he appears without Caitlin Snow. Oliver asks Felicity to call Barry for help. She mentions he's still dealing with the aftermath of Harrison Wells, which means this episode takes place after All-Star Team-Up. Felicity's line to Roy, "I'm missing most of all, Scarecrow," is a tribute to the movie The Wizard of Oz when Dorothy Gale bids goodbye to Scarecrow as she prepares to return home. This is the first episode in the Arrowverse to confirm the date of the Starlab's particle accelerator explosion, that being December 11th, 2013. Stephen Amell and Colton Haynes both commented on social media that this episode was emotionally draining to film as real emotions were brought to the surface and it's hard to say goodbye, even if it's scripted. Aww. And now finally, let's take a look at some goofs. After Captain Lance is done talking to Roy in his jail cell, the guard unlocks the cell door to let him out. A buzzer sound can be heard as he turns the key in the door. However, the cell door is a manual lock and shouldn't make that sound, which is from an electric door lock buzzer. After examining the equipment in Team Arrow's underground base, the SCPD techs tell Captain Lance that the only fingerprints they found were Roy's. When Oliver confronts the team, they admit to wiping away all but Roy's fingerprints as police already had him in custody. However, there's no way to selectively wipe away prints, so they would have to have everything then plant Roy's fingerprints, which Roy was unavailable to do. It's possible Team Arrow has its members' individual fingerprint data available for such situations. That's interesting. So I think this episode is pretty good and also pretty emotional with Roy having to leave and stuff like that, so yeah. So overall, I give Broken Arrow 3 arrowheads out of 5. Well, anyway, tune in as we take a look at the next episode, The Fallen. So, until then, in the words of Oliver Queen, you have failed this city.